Hello everybody, you're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM. This is the weekly radio show where we chat about the local arts news. We have a different guest on each week. We head over to the Rhylight Zone for a short story and or some poetry. We catch up with Twangling Jack Ford over in the Oak Shed for a weekly album review, and we play local, unsigned and or independent music. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. And we are repeat on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. We're going to head over to the Rhylight Zone. This is an essay called The Lack of Originality in Modern Literature that I co-wrote with a guy called Matt Turner about 15 years ago now, and recently recorded it for you guys to have a listen. The Lack of Originality in Modern Literature, written with Matt Turner circa 2009. When did we sacrifice literature for entertainment? Was it before or after Hollywood and the record labels sold their souls and began to churn out mindless, meaningless rubbish? All too often we find that new novels are constructed by formula. Today, if we pay a visit to our local library, it can be a challenge to find a genuine work of literature. To find Dickens and Shakespeare, we must walk past shelves of ghost-written autobiographies and Barbara Cartland novels. The library used to be the safe haven of the intellectual, but the intellectual is a dying breed. Our society demands Dan Brown, James Patterson, and, God forbid, Katie Price. Reading, once reserved for the middle and upper classes, is now an activity for the masses. Serial behemoths such as Harry Potter and Stephenie Meyer's Twilight have introduced children and teenagers across the globe to the wonders of the written word. But what's the point if they spend the rest of their lives reading the drivel that pollutes the list of bestsellers? It's important for readers to open up to classical literature before the writers of the future give in to laziness and routine. Why bother with experimentation when you can sell the same story over and over again? Literature always been about originality. Let's compare it to music. Great literature is a vehicle for expression. There's a difference between Bob Dylan and Beyonce, and there's a difference between Joseph Conrad and Dan Brown. Why bother reading a novel that was written to entertain the masses? Good fiction should push the established boundaries, not settle safely in the middle. The brilliant writers of the past have been forgotten, and the best of our generation are overshadowed. We live in an age where trends are worshipped like religion, and libraries are full of books without souls. Literature has evolved into a popularity contest, and it's difficult to tell who's winning. The problem with repeating the same formula for fiction is clear to anyone with a love of the written word. It's easy to get halfway through a crime novel before you realise that you've already read it, or so we're told. Try doing that with Oliver Twist or On the Road. For a good writer, words flow like water. Our store of literature is in danger of stagnation. It's easy to say that there are a finite number of plots, but plots are like stars. We discover new ones daily and will never give names to them all. Too many writers are taking the easy option and pointing their telescopes towards the sun, blinding themselves to the possibility of a new creation. They say that everyone has a novel inside them, but most have already been written. The fast-paced bestsellers that we see in airports and supermarkets are full of complications and derelict of character development. They're called page-turners for a reason. We skim through them to find out what happens, and we're at the end before we know it. If literature is music, reading the trash that lines the bookshelves of the masses is like listening to the Sugar Babes. Pleasing to the eye or the ear, but there's no substance. In literature, like in music and film, there's a difference between the writers that write for pleasure and those that write for money and fame. Note from Pamela Harris, my editor, particularly indie authors. Some just write to see their names in print and have fan bases even though they're putting out underdeveloped first drafts because they'd rather produce quantity rather than make the time for a proper edit. End of rant. Katie Price, aka Jordan, released her first novel in 2006 after flashing her breasts in newspapers across the country. Before long, she confessed that she played no part in its creation. Dan Brown creates interesting plots full of intrigue and suspense, and they bring out the conspiracy theorist in all of us. Unfortunately, his writing lets him down. We're not saying that all modern literature is worthless, just that the inventive and unique is overshadowed by the cheaply printed mass-market paperbacks that, metaphorically speaking, belong on pirate DVDs and nightclub sound systems. If this is the direction that modern literature is taking, we want no part of it. Recommended further reading: Modern Literature. Misery by Stephen King, The Complete Mouse by Art Spiegelman, The Ruby and the Smoke by Philip Pullman, Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk, The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty, Trainspotting by Irvin Welsh, Battle Royale by Kushan Takami, Feet of Clay by Terry Pratchett, Book of Dave by Will Self, The Essential Spike Milligan by Spike Milligan. Classics: 1984 by George Orwell, Our Man in Havana by Graham Greene, Howl and Other Poems by Allen Ginsberg, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, Dracula by Bram Stoker, Notes from the Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence, and On the Road by Jack Kerouac. That was The Lack of Originality in Modern Literature by myself, Dane Cobain, written with Matt Turner. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound, and this is Betty Accorsi. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and I'm joined now in conversation by this week's guest, who is Justine Hart of Hartbeats.
So today, obviously, we want to chat about your drumming group, and I thought the best place would be for you to just introduce it, to tell us a little bit about it, what it's called, how it came about, and what it's all about.
Yeah. Okay. So my drumming group is called Hartbeats, and actually we're called Hartbeats Vitae Drummers. So originally we were just called Vitae Drummers, and that's because I was in a band before 1998. I was in a band with a number of people in High Wycombe, and the band was called Vitae. And then I went off to Senegal, got into doing African drumming, went on a holiday to do African drumming in Senegal, and came back, and we stopped being in a band, and suddenly we morphed into being an African drumming circle. So we're called Hartbeats. Hartbeats is the name of my organisation, and the name of the local group that's been running for 25 years is Hartbeats Vitae Drummers.
Oh, awesome! And obviously, Hartbeats is it's spelled HART because of your surname as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very
It's
cool.
quite a useful surname. It's actually my mum's name is Hart.
Yeah. Awesome.
I had a previous name to that, which I will let on, which is Rugless, Rugles.
Yeah.
And
Doesn't go as well with the drumming theme.
I changed my name by default to my mum's name because it's a nicer name.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. Rugless always got laughed at.
Yeah. Cool. So what is it about drumming that attracted you to it as an activity? I mean, I suppose it starts with your travels in Senegal, right?
Yeah, I think even before that, I never would have considered myself as a drummer or even attempting to drum. I was a singer, played guitar. I don't know if it was a thought of, oh, that's what boys do, like when I was at school. I wouldn't have ever thought of taking up drum kit. It was singing and playing guitar was something that I got into. And then being in this band, we were exploring world music and folk music, and so it was that led us to getting into the drumming and wanting to explore percussion in the band. I wasn't thinking that I was going to be really getting into it that much. I just thought, just try it out. It was just a bit of fun, really. We saw a leaflet at Glastonbury Festival, myself and my partner at the time, Jed, and we saw this leaflet and we thought, that looks exciting. Let's go to Senegal, just for the fun of it, really. So that's how we got started.
Awesome. Well, I was having a chat to Sophie Reed a few weeks ago. And she's a drummer, and one of the things we were talking about is how perhaps drumming and vocals might be like the oldest form of music making as well, because the barrier to entry is so low. You don't need a stringed instrument or anything like that. So it's something you can very easily make just by yourself with a couple of rocks. And I think that's part of the interesting thing about drumming is it is quite approachable. I mean, it's for something like your drumming group, would you say that's a good place for people to start if they don't consider themselves musical, but they want to get into it?
Definitely. There's a lot of people who come drumming who say, oh, they first contact me, I don't think I've got any rhythm, or I was told at school I couldn't play an instrument, I'm not musical. And it does give people an opportunity to play music, and you can do something very quickly as well. That's also the other good thing about drumming, as opposed to taking up the violin or guitar or many other instruments, is that you can actually come to a drumming class, and by the end of your drumming class you'll be playing something. You'll be playing a rhythm. You might not make the perfect sound, but as long as you can hit a drum and can hear the rhythm, then you can do it.
Yeah, it gives you that kind of positive feedback.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think a lot of people keep drumming because of it gives them that outlet for music, but it is also a group activity. So I've come across people who maybe are drum kit players, but unless they're in the band, it's quite a lonely place. So you've got a kit and you can have a practice on your own, but But if you do African drumming in a group, you're coming and being part of a group, and you're drumming with everybody else and not just on your own.
Yeah. And even like a bigger group than you would get in a band as well. And I think that's, how
Oh
important
yeah,
would you say
definitely.
community is to what you guys do as, as a drumming group?
Oh, massive. I would say it's for some people the community side is even more than the drumming. So
Hmm.
people have come drumming because maybe they're stressed, maybe they want to socialize, and what keeps them coming, it is the drumming, but it is the social life. And if you scratch the surface and get into drumming and find out what else there is going on, there is so much. People have no idea how many different activities there are. There are so many weekend workshops going on all over the country, all over the world. There are people who are really into West African djembe and dundun drumming, and their whole social life evolves around that. And I know I know so many people, including people who come to my group. My own social life has evolved, and
Hmm.
so my group is they're my students, but some of them, especially those who have been drumming with me a long time, maybe 20 years, they're really close friends. I've been to their weddings, or maybe even encouraged them to meet each other and get married
Yeah.
through drumming. So it's definitely yes, it's the social side is a massive part of doing this activity. Not for everybody. Some people just do it for the music. They don't do it
Yeah.
for that reason. But I think more people get so much from the social side of it.
Yeah. Cool. And so you mentioned the drumming group turned 25 this September. What do you think has contributed the most to its longevity?
Um, I think partly it's the people that have been coming. So I've just been very lucky. Jed, who I was talking about, we're not together anymore, but all this time we've always stayed drumming together.
Hmm.
Um, so I think having people like Jed, other people in my group who are really key players. For example, there's a man called Barry Nielsen, and he is an amazing drummer. He specializes in the dunduns, which are the bass drums, and I'm so lucky to have him. His experience, his expertise, his skills, and just always turning up every week and always being there. That really helps to have somebody like that in the group. And there are others in the group. There's another drummer who plays that type of drum as well, called Steve. There's also another drummer called Malcolm. So those people, I've just been lucky to have those people around me. And that's definitely helped, because when people come along, if the group's got really solid core of people, then that keeps it going. That definitely
Yeah.
keeps it going. I think it's probably, I could also probably say for myself, it's just me doing it. Even when times have been tough, or the class maybe isn't that well attended, it's the continuity, just
Yeah.
keeping doing it, not stopping. Obviously, I had to stop during COVID, but even then, I did some Zoom classes and resumed it as soon as I could, and we went back with masks and playing
Yeah.
outside and big gaps and all of that to keep the class going.
Yeah.
But being where we are, I think helps. I think High Wycombe is a really good place. I think I feel sad when I see posts about High Wycombe and how people diss High Wycombe and say it's bad, it's
Mm.
this and that. It's actually musically, and I think you know about this as well, Dane, because you're a musician as well. There's a really thriving music community in this
Yeah.
area, and I think that's, I don't know how comes these actually. I don't really know why, but it seems to be the case. My dad was a musician, and he was part of that as well. So I think that helps as well. I think the fact that there isn't other things going on. Maybe if you're in London, there's so many things going on in
Yeah.
London. Whereas so here you haven't got that and that and that to choose from in an evening. Okay, we've got an African drumming class. I'll go to that. I think that helps
Yeah.
as well. I think the location wise, people can get to High Wycombe. People can get there. People travel, come from my classes. They come. There's one guy who's really great drummer. He travels from near Heathrow to come to my class. Someone else has been coming. They're south of Reading. My other class that I run, that's not High Wycombe, that's in the Aylesbury area, she comes for over an hour drive, but it is doable because we're on the motorway. So I think that really helps as well, people who are coming from further afield, as well as obviously locals too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brilliant. And in terms of like the time that the group's been active, how has it developed, if at all, you know, from when you started 25 years ago to now? You know, what's different? What growth
Well,
areas have you
certainly
seen?
I'm different. So when I first started, so I went on this holiday, as I said, came back, wanted to play what I'd learned, would never ever have said called myself a teacher, but okay, so I know these rhythms. I can't really make the right sounds on the drums, but I can show you this rhythm that I've learnt. And so back then, my standard of playing was I was a beginner. But even though I was running a group, I was a beginner, but I never claimed to be a teacher. So what has developed is my training. So I have been training for these 25 years. I've lost count how many times I've been back to West Africa to train properly, running workshops. I've run big drumming events where I've invited teachers. Throughout the year, I'm always training, going on workshops. So that makes a difference. So the better drummer I become, the better I can teach, and things like the sounds of the drums, which unless you get into it, you wouldn't really know what I mean. But the technique and how to play something that takes a long time to develop. So now I can make the right sounds, and rather than okay, I'm trying to make the sounds. So that's developed, and I think it's also what's happened is just through people becoming friends over a long period of time. So that's developed. Obviously, when we first started, nobody knew each other. The performances have changed. So now in the performances, I have something called dun-dun dancing. So the dun-duns, which are the bass drums, and there are parts in our performances where we play the dun-duns. I will do a dance step at the same time as playing the drums. So that's sort of changed throughout the time. You know, it's something we didn't do. Even the dun-duns, when we first drummed, we didn't have those bass drums in the country. Nobody even knew about them. So the music and what we play has become more interesting, more complex. We're playing things that we would never have been able to play 20 years, 15 years. So we just keep developing as a group, but always have space for new people. Obviously, there's always the beginner level classes as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about that. You know, how can people get involved if they want to come along to one of your workshops?
So there's some information on Facebook. So I've got a Heartbeats Facebook page. So you can get in contact me via there, or via email. So I've got a website, www.heartbeats.co.uk, and that will have my email address. And so there's some information about the classes, but it's not everything on there. So I ask people to send me a message, and then I will send everything back with the prices and how the class works. And all I ask people to is just to let me know when they're coming, so you don't have to sign up for a course. You can just come as a one-off and come and try it out. But I just need to know, so I've got enough djembe drums in my van for anyone who's new. And that's really all it is. It's just somebody, I mean, they can message me on the day and say, you know, can I come drumming tonight? And I can fit anybody in. I have no limitation on the amount of people that I can fit in my classes. I've got no limitation on the amount of drums. I've got a lot of drums. So
you're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. I'm here in conversation with Justine Hart of Hartbeats, and this is Without My Addiction with In the Name of Progress.
roadside, all on your own, overloaded by the weather, your morality too. You just can't understand all the pain around you. Now see you standing there alone, and all your friends are gone. Not for you know by now. Don't you ever learn? Don't you ever learn? You've got a selfish outlook, don't care for who you hurt. You've got a cynical smile that no one cares for. You've been locked out in the darkness and left by all your friends. All this time that you've been blinded by the sight of progress. Now see you standing there alone, and all your friends are gone. Not for you know by now. Don't you ever learn? Don't you ever Now see you standing there alone, and all your friends are gone. Not for you know by now. Don't you ever learn? Don't you? Don't you? Now see you standing there alone, and all your friends are gone. Not for you know by now. Don't you ever learn? You won't ever
That was In the Name of Progress by Without My Addiction. You're listening to The Archer on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and we are going to be rejoining conversation now by Justine Hart of Hartbeats.
Do you think that drumming can help people with like their mental health? I suppose more specifically, not just drumming, but drumming as part of a group. Do you think that's something that can help people?
Yes, definitely. And people over the years, all the years I've been playing, people have come up to me directly and said, you might not have known this, but when I first came drumming, I was going through a really difficult time and the drumming has really helped me. So I've had a lot of people. I've had people who maybe were very quiet when they first came drumming, and that it sort of brought them out of their shell. Partly it's to do with drumming as an activity, but it's also because of the social side of things. So people can come, you can come and make a noise, and you maybe don't even have to chat. You can just make some noise and hit the drum. And then also I get booked to do a lot of workshops for different groups, people with different types of special needs. So I know that those organisations see drumming as a really useful and powerful way for groups of people with different types of, whether it's problems, emotional problems or physical difficulties. It's something that people, even if somebody is disabled and maybe can't hit the drum, I've found through those workshops there's enjoyment just sitting and being part of a group and enjoying listening, or maybe somebody supporting them and helping them to hit the drum.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, one thing I wanted to ask, and I suppose this, you'll have a good viewpoint on this from, again, working with those groups. I suppose equally with people who speak different languages, and you've done your fair share of traveling. And I wondered, like, what
Yeah.
is it about drumming that makes it so universal, so that these different groups of people, these people with different languages, can come together and, you know, drum together?
Oh, that's hard. That's a hard question to answer. Um, I think one of the things is that it is just so accessible,
Yeah.
and it's so enjoyable. So because I'm so lucky to have some amazing support drummers, so if I do a workshop, I've got somebody with me who can keep it going, can keep it at a really amazing, interesting, fantastic West African rhythm going whilst I'm helping everybody else. So I think people, even if they're not really able to play something, they just enjoy it. It's something that's so um, instant. I did a workshop today.
Mm.
I was really happy to get booked to do a performance and a workshop in a school in High Wycombe that I've not worked at before, and part of it they wanted us to do a performance for a little event they had on, and it was outside, and the children were all outside in this field and in the playground, and they, as soon as we start drumming, they just jump up and down. It's just instant. It's
Yeah.
just it's an instant feeling. I think adults would do that too, but we're inhibited. If we were out in Africa, they'd
Yeah.
be dancing as well. But it's just such an instant thing that as soon as we do a performance anywhere, the first thing that happens is that the toddlers come running forward and jump up and down.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something quite visceral to it. I mean, obviously, like, very different to what you guys are doing, but even when you think of, like, you know, when you watch like an old war film about, you know, the Romans, you know, fighting the Celts or whatever, you've always got the war drums, because it's something that, I
Mm,
suppose, it carries over the noise of the battle, but again, it hits you somewhere, like, in your heart. You know, you have a
yeah.
visceral reaction to a drum beat. Another thing I mentioned when I was chatting to Sophie, again, it's interesting chatting to drummers and seeing
Yeah.
the kind of common things that come up. But I was saying, like, when you're at, say, a carnival or something like that, or even at a festival, at a concert, it's usually the drums you hear first. You can feel the drums, like, vibrating in the
Mm,
ground, and it's that kind of draws you towards the music, and you get closer, and then you're like, okay,
mm,
now I can hear some vocals and guitar. But it's
yeah.
kind of the drums that draw you in, I think.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
really exciting. Yeah, I think that's another part of it, is when it's fast. So we do a rhythm, like we did this little demonstration for this class today. Do a little demonstration. We start off with a slow rhythm. As soon as we go into one that's sort of almost like a techno rhythm, that's it. They're just all, so excited, and I think it's also to do with the excitement and the speed of it
Yeah.
that people like as well.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me on to, like, I was wondering, do you think, you know, does the drumming you do, does it tell a story? Because I suppose you could do, couldn't you, with going from slow to fast, and it does kind of, you know, it does kind of tell a story, the same way classical music can tell a story without any
Yeah.
lyrics.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if it was played out in Africa,
Mm,
West Africa, where the drums are from, for example, Guinea, where a lot of the rhythms are from, the actual rhythm would be saying something.
mm,
It would have a message, because there'd be a reason for it to be being played,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
people would understand that message.
Cool. A couple more, again, more random questions. I want to know, what are some of the more unusual percussion instruments you've come across throughout your years? There must be a fair few.
Well, there's quite a lot which are um, just kind of that you come across in West Africa, where they've just sort of put something together,
Hmm.
um, and made some percussion out of it, and that's great. So um, there's a village which I've been visiting in Senegal, and every year they have a festival. So I've been at the festival, played at the festival, and one of the groups there's a women's group that play, and they use lots of kitchen equipment. It's
Yeah,
great. It's really good what they can do with their pots and pans. Really very
yeah,
sophisticated stuff.
yeah. No, that's cool. And you know, you mentioned obviously you run your workshops and your lessons and things are one thing, but when you actually perform at events, how difficult is it to coordinate such a large group of people for a specific, you know, specific performance at an event?
Yeah, I do. I have become more and more bossy, I think, as the years have gone on. So yeah, so I you know, you got to arrive at. I know people are going to be late, and you know, yes, when especially if it's a big performance, it is a challenge to. But then because they come to my classes every week, and a lot of them know what to do, so I'm lucky having had all these experienced drummers. So now if I go to a performance to run a performance, it's not just me doing everything. I've got someone else that's taking care of that side of things, someone else who's
Yeah.
helping me with other things. So I get a lot of help, as well as knowing how to direct people, hopefully in a nice way.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Just a couple more questions to end on. I want to kind of just follow up that question about events. What are some of the events that you've performed at throughout your, you know, your 25 years that really stand out in your memory?
Probably playing at Glastonbury. That was really exciting. I mean, as I was like, I played at Glastonbury, not on a big stage, but did play for the opening ceremony of Glastonbury. And we were booked to play every night around the there's a field with a stone circle. It's a fake stone circle, but there's a field with a stone circle. I don't know if you've been to Glastonbury, Dane, but
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I know what
yeah.
you mean.
So they had banned drums, and I don't know if they have done, if they still have, but so this was a couple of years ago. Somebody was booked, and they wanted to then book me to find a group of drummers who were going to play every day around the stone circle from 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So I did that every night at Glastonbury Festival, and the amazing thing about it was that that's where I started, because that's where the
Yeah.
leaflet was
Yeah, that's what I
that
was
landed
thinking.
in
Yeah,
my
you've gone
hand.
full circle.
It was so, and I was drumming with Jed as well. So there was
Yeah.
me and Jed drumming at this in this stone circle, and the you know the 20 the whatever years it was when I went to Glastonbury. I'd said to myself, right, I'm never coming back here again unless I'm going to be getting in as an artist. There's no way.
Yeah.
I've got to get in as a musician. I've got to find a way in. And then it came to me, and then
Yeah.
there we were back in that stone circle. And of course, when I heard the drumming back then, it was one of the things that inspired me to want to do it and have a go at it. And also hearing, God, that sounds terrible, because it was the drumming at Glastonbury was just, there was just no, it was just the same thing. It was like there must be something
Yeah.
more to playing those drums than that. So it was really interesting to go back, and then just to get this sort of job to do it, and you know, to have hardly any other percussion around the whole of the campsite anywhere
Yeah.
being played apart from us playing around the stone circle, which was yeah, so that was great. And that's some other things. I've played at the Swan a few times, the Algeeba Theatre. I love playing in theatres because of the rain. So if I get an
Yeah.
opportunity to play where there's rain cover, and playing inside a theatre is really good because I can do the drumming and the dancing. Played at Frogfest, that was really great. Beacon Festival. So yeah, any events like that. But it's also really nice just playing on the ground level, so that
Yeah.
so you're not far away from everybody. You're actually right in front of people. And I think probably more than anything though, of all the things I've done, I don't know, Glastonbury was good, but it's when I get to play with my teachers. So
Yeah.
to have the opportunity now, so the last few times I've been going out to Senegal, the Guinean teacher that I was drumming with, he gave me the opportunity to perform with him.
Yeah.
And the event I run every year locally, the teachers, they if I'm lucky, I'll get to get on the stage and play. So that's amazing to do that. And I still pinch myself and think, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm doing,
Yeah.
you know, that's like, it's everyone else is on the stage is is amazing, and I get the opportunity to do that as well. It's really exciting to, I love that.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, so just the one question to end on is sort of two in one, really. But what's next for you, and I guess for yourself in general, and also for Heartbeats, and where can people follow you to stay up to date and find out more?
Well, it's just continuing, really. So what I'd like to do is more regular classes in schools. So I've been working in one school for I'm now in my third year, a school in Chalfont St Peter, St Joseph's Catholic Primary School, and I absolutely love it because I get to train them, and so they get to a really high standard. And I do a lot of workshops, and I do love doing the one-off workshops like I did today, where everyone, they get a taste of drumming. But when you get an opportunity to work with young people and children and actually really give them the knowledge that I've got now, and all the rhythms, and get them to play parts which I could never teach in a one-day workshop, and they're playing things which are really high level, that's so exciting. And if they then, some of them will carry on doing it, some of them may go into doing other things. So so I'd like to do more of that. I'd like to do more working with children on a regular basis. And just continuing. I just want to just continue my class. It's being a self-employed person, it's not an easy living. Somehow I've been able to do it. I am clinging on, and I'm still here, I'm still doing it, I'm still just making my living out of music and drumming. I sing as well, so that's part of the drumming, but I also sing outside of drumming. I do other singing things. So I'd like to, so just to continue the drumming and doing more of the dun dancing. I'd like to do more of that. Just keeping going.
Cool. And where's best for people to follow you?
So it would be Heartbeats. So I'm on Facebook and Heartbeats. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not brilliant at social media. I really, really should be, because so many people don't know I exist. It's really crazy that I've been doing it for so long, and people don't know that there's been an African drumming class in High Wycombe for the last 25 years.
Yeah, right on their doorstep.
And one in Aylesbury area for 20 years. People don't know it, and they should know. So I'd like to. I'd like the message to go out there that it exists, so that people can come if they're interested in doing it.
Awesome.
Big thank you to Justine Hart for joining me. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and this is the Rock All the Morning Band with Where Are We Now?
Like madness.
You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wickham Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain, and it's time for us to head over to the Oak Shed now to catch up with Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review.
The Temptations, My Girl, The Collection. It was not till I found myself caught up in the mod revival, mostly as a van driver and roadie, that I developed a taste for Motown. I got into the Temptations by a very circuitous route. I used to hear the song Get Ready played by a loud rock band who had a residency at a local pub, and they were probably copying a cover. One of the few Faces songs sung by Rod Stewart that I really liked was a live version of I Wish It Would Rain. I have always been a big fan of the song My Girl, but I knew it as an Otis Redding song with that famous guitar riff and horns. And then there was Just My Imagination, a song I knew well, but I would not have known who sang it. I never really gave any thought to the Temptations. They were the male Motown vocal group that weren't the Four Tops, and I could have named a number of Four Tops hits. The Temptations did not have a strong image like the Four Tops, and they had an ever-changing lineup with different lead singers. Also, they changed styles. They started with an R&B doo-wop sound, and then with Smokey Robinson producing and writing their songs, they had that snare roll and tambourine Motown beat. The sound of the Motor City car production lines. Then they were taken on by Norman Whitfield as a writer and producer, and he gave them a much more funky psychedelic sound, more like Sly and the Family Stone. Epic songs like Ball of Confusion and Cloud 9. In any compilation there is usually something missing, and this one has the obvious omission of the game-changing ghetto opera that his papa was a Rolling Stone. An epic piece of music, with a long moody introduction and a tragic novella of a lyric. I might have been tempted to just write about this album without listening to it, because I have owned other Temptations compilations on CD and cassette. But I did listen, and I discovered my new favourite Temptations song. It is a song I only knew from a version by Peter Tosh with Mick Jagger, but it is a Smokey Robinson song, originally a Temptations B-side. It is You Better Walk and Don't Look Back. My Girl, The Temptations, a collection.
Big thank you to Twangling Jack Ford for this week's album review. As always, you can find us on Facebook. If you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, you should be able to find us. You can also reach out to me here at the studio on dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wickhamsound.org.uk. I'm particularly keen to hear from performers, musicians, poets, people with MP3s to share, people with local arts news. Don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also find us on Facebook if you search for The Art Show on Wickham Sound, and we are repeated on Wickham Sound on Monday nights. We're on the Wickham Sound Listen Again, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please do leave us a short review on your podcast platform of choice. So I'm going to leave you with one last tune, and this is Alice Jane with Hold On To Me. I'll catch you next week.
Anything